Angeles now. FBI agents arrested 4 people who they say were planning to set off bombs across the Los Angeles area on New Year's Eve. The FBI showed aerial surveillance footage of the suspects as they gathered in the Mojave Desert. Authorities say the 2 men and 2 women arrested are members of the Turtle Island Liberation Front, which they describe as an anti-government group.
This anti-government group traveled out to the desert to test their explosive devices. They had precursor chemicals there, and they were going to create these bombs. What they are starting to do is put their chemicals and wares and the components on the table there.
FBI agents moved in shortly after this video was taken. The FBI says the group planned to target U.S. companies around Los Angeles and Orange County with backpacks with pipe bombs. The federal complaint says the group was not attempting to kill people, and if they saw anyone near the bombs, they would try to warn them and move away.
Federal and local law enforcement in Los Angeles today announced the arrest of 4 individuals who they say had planned to bomb several Los Angeles area businesses on New Year's Eve. The arrests appear to have foiled what they say could have been a deadly terror attack. FBI and federal prosecutors say the 4 people who they arrested were part of a radical faction of a left-wing anti-government group called the Turtle Island Liberation Front. This small group had worked for weeks on a plan to make and distribute pipe bombs at different locations of 2 different U.S. businesses in Los Angeles and Orange County. The group was finally arrested on Friday, December 12th, after officials tracked them to a remote desert location near 29 Palms, where officials found the group with materials that they say could have been used to make devices that could explode or Molotov cocktails. The investigation is still ongoing, but officials believe that they've arrested everyone involved with this specific plot.
This is the book of Matthew, chapter 24, beginning of verse 9. It reads, Then shall they deliver you up to be afflicted, and shall kill you, and ye shall be hated of all nations for my name's sake. Shalom, shalom, Akim, Kol Holo Yahweh, Bahashem Yahushai, Bahashem Rachakodash. Double honor to the elders and apostles of the great millstone who rule and teach all, who taught me this truth in truth and sincerity. Peace, blessings, salutations unto the hopeful elect, who are listening in truth and sincerity. The brother Gabari Allah coming at you with another lesson. Alright. And today's lesson is going to be based or entitled, Be Ready to be Labeled as Terrorist. Okay. Be ready to be labeled as terrorists. Now, what you see in the beginning clip, alright, those are, actual terrorists, that they caught or whatever, you know, but we all know that this is all part of the elites, okay? Saying, you heard that they were some sort of activists, okay? Which they keep throwing those words out there, okay? They keep throwing those words like activist and just, words like that are, they can easily put onto us, as Akim, okay? Because we are enemies of the state, as one of the elders like to say. We are enemies of the state, because we preach obviously against it. We preach their downfall, okay? And like the prophets of old, okay, a lot of them were falsely persecuted, all right? But what happened with them, all right, real quick. Uh, real quick. Uh, Salaki, bear with me, Baba Kisha. To the spirit, I want to bring this out. All right, That's good, but I don't want that. Bear with me, Baba Kasha. I'm looking for this real quick. Salaki, I found it. But it's the book of Acts, chapter 12, and verse 1. It reads, Now about that time, Herod the king stretched forth his hand to vex certain of the church, and he killed James, the brother of John, with a sword. And because he saw it pleased the Jews, he further proceeded, Salaki, he proceeded further to take Peter also. Then were the days of unleavened bread. So pretty much, the church was being persecuted, okay? And then you had Jeremiah, who was falsely thrown into prison, which really, even Paul was thrown into prison multiple times. And, they were all thrown into prison. Why? For preaching his truth, you know, for pushing the word, for telling it how it is to their faces, man, to the king's faces. Jeremiah was in Babylon, prophesying in ancient Babylon, telling it straight up how it was. Okay. It says, And when he had apprehended him, he put him in prison and delivered him to four quaternions quaternions of soldiers to keep him, intending after Easter to bring him forth to the people. Peter therefore was kept in prison, but prayer made without ceasing of the church unto power for him. It's like it, but prayer was made without ceasing, which meaning, nonstop, of the church unto power for him. And when Herod would have brought him forth, the same night Peter was sleeping between two soldiers, bound with two chains, and the keepers before the door kept the prison. So Peter was, bound. Okay, he was tied up, pretty much locked in securely. All right, it says, And behold, the angel of the Lord came upon him, and a light shined in the prison. And he smote Peter on the side, and raised him up, saying, Arise up quickly. And his chains fell off from his hands. So pretty much the Lord delivered Peter via angels. And the angel said unto him, Gird thyself, and bind on thy sandals. And so he did. And he saith unto him, Cast thy garment about thee, and follow me. And he went out and followed him, and wist not that it was true, which was done by the angel, but thought he saw a vision. So Peter, pretty much didn't think, he thought he was seeing a vision, okay? But what was happening was, real life. The angel really did uh, go out and rescue him. Okay, but it pretty much goes into I just wanted to get that to go into that the Lord is pretty much going to save us out of these persecutions, man. Okay, so these people are uh I just thought it was a good clip to get edification, to pretty much show what the prophets of the Lord are going to be labeled as. Okay, you're going to be labeled as a terrorist. Okay, you're going to be labeled as these things for going against this NWO. Okay, now I'm going to go to the book of Matthew again, which I started off in. All right, it reads Matthew 12, it's like 24 and verse 3. And as he sat upon the Mount Olives, the disciples came up unto him privately, saying, Tell us, when shall these things be? And what shall be the sign of thy coming and the end of the world? So they're asking Yahushua, okay, the disciples are asking Yahushua, what are going to be the signs of the end of the world? Meaning right now, you know, it says, and Yahushua answered and said unto them, Take heed that no man deceive you, for many shall come in my name, saying, I am Hamashiach, and shall deceive many. And ye shall hear of wars and rumors of wars. See that ye be not troubled, for all these things must come to pass, but the end is not yet. And we've already heard of all these rumors of wars, and there's going to be more rumors of wars until eventually it's no longer a rumor. It says, For nation shall rise against nation, and kingdom against kingdom, and there shall be famines and pestilences and earthquakes in diverse places. Right, man? Okay, and we already see nations rising up against each other. And these are the beginning of sorrows. And here's the point, verse 9. And they shall deliver you up to be afflicted, and shall kill you, and ye shall be hated of all nations for my name's sake. Right, man? They're going to be lying about us, telling lies, saying bullshit, to get us arrested, to get us persecuted. Okay? And it says, And then shall many be offended, and shall betray one another, and shall hate one another. And many false prophets shall arise and deceive many. And because iniquity shall abound, the love of many shall wax cold. But he that endureth to the end, the same shall be saved. Right? So if you endure to the end, if you endure all these tribulations, these trials, the hour of temptation, okay, because the Lord is only going to deliver his elect, the 1/3, out of the hour of temptation, you know. So if you survive all that, okay, and you in this ministry, you locked in, okay, if you're enduring to the end, you will be saved, and some brothers are gonna have to die being a Martian, you know. I'm gonna close out in the book of Second Ezra, chapter 16 and verse 37. Behold, the plagues draw nigh and are not slack, as when a woman with child in the 9th month bringeth forth her son, with 2 or 3 hours of her birth, great pains compass her womb, which pains, when the child cometh forth, they slack not a moment, right? The labor pains. Even so shall not the plagues be slack to come upon the earth, and the world shall mourn, and sorrows shall come upon it on every side, right? So just as evident as birth pains are, that's how evident these things will come. Okay, these plagues. It says, "Oh, my people, hear my word." And here's the point: make you ready to thy battle, and in those days be even as pilgrims upon the earth. Right? You're gonna have to be as pilgrims upon the earth, meaning not having a stable house. You're gonna be traveling, going places from place to place, you know, from city to city. The scriptures say, "A man shall desire to go into a city and shall not be able." There's gonna be martial law. There's gonna be things that the it's gonna be all chaos, man. And if you don't have the Lord, and if you're not listening to the words now, and you're not gonna be ready for that battle. You're not gonna be making yourself ready for that battle. Okay. So, that's pretty much it, man. Lord willing was edifying. Lord willing was uplifting. Lord willing, you got some edification out of these videos, man. You know, and really put yourself in a position to really understand what's going to come. Okay, persecution, non-stop persecution. So with that, Lord willing was edifying. Wanna close out by giving our praises, honor, and infinite glory unto Yahweh Bahashem, Abishai Bahashem B'chakurash. Divine aid again to the elders and apostles of the Great Millstone who rule and teach well. Peace, blessings, salutation to the hopeful elect. Walk with listening in truth and sincerity. Shalom.